everyone. How are you? Great. I know, me too. So I just wanted to, I love the fact that I get to sit here and talk to you ladies today about balancing work life because I have a wellness company, and it's one of the things that we focus on is how women, how we call it the juggling, the multitasking of priorities in life. And I just would love to start the conversation around that piece. But first, before we do that, I would love for every panelist to introduce themselves and tell you a little bit about themselves.
Is this on? Thank you. Thank you very much. And thank you all, I have to say. So I'm Laura McKenzie. I'm the Senior Vice President of Global Prepaid at MasterCard, and also responsible for our financial inclusion initiatives. I'm going to start out by saying I am in awe of everybody in this room. I am not an entrepreneur. I work for a large global corporation, but the guts and the courage and the charisma and the drive that you all have is just inspiring. So very, very glad to be here. I'm a single mother. I've just raised 3 kids through college while traveling the globe. First graduation last Saturday, so 1 down, 2 to go. We all know that's not an easy road, so glad to be here.
I'm Jen Graham, founder and CEO of Civic Dinners, and I'm also a mom. I had a 1-year-old, just turned 1 last Friday, so I did it. I made it. First step. Baby steps. So Civic Dinners is all about bringing people together around the dinner table for conversations that matter. And we've grown over the past 4.5 years now, where we're actually bringing on our first full-time employee on Monday. And we got our first big boy office. So we're really excited, and I'm just thrilled to be here. So thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Kate Atwood. And I kind of wear 2 hats, I guess. I'd like to say I'm rejoining the club as an entrepreneur. I recently left a position to launch Be Essential, which is really a multifaceted company that is leveling up leaders, companies, brands, and creators to reach their pinnacle of impact. So we deliver that strategically. We deliver that through partnerships as well as through content and media. So very excited about Be Essential. That is kind of the new game I'm in. A lot of people may know me as the founder of Kate's Club, and I think that's what makes my story a bit unique. I kind of did the whole career thing backwards, where I started with my legacy piece. I started Kate's Club when I was 22 years old. It is a nonprofit organization that is for children and teens who have had the profound loss of a parent or a sibling. We're now 16 years old. We're the largest children's, yep, you can clap for that. We're the largest children's bereavement agency in the state. And I'm sure I'll share a little bit more about that journey. But it has played an interesting role in kind of flipping a career when you start with your legacy. That was more about what I wanted to leave in the world rather than who I wanted to be in the world. It's just created a unique career path for me. So I'm really excited to be here, and I look forward to sharing with these amazing, incredible women.
Hello, everyone. I'm Scarlett Presley Brown, and currently serving as the Community Development Officer for Children's Healthcare. For most of those who are familiar and know me, I spent 13 years at Delta as the Director of Community Affairs and the VP of the Delta Airlines Foundation. And prior to that, I worked with Eastlake as their Community Development Officer. And so my heart has always been in engaging the community, being a part of the community, serving the community, and improving the quality of life for those less fortunate. I also do have a business of my own. It's called Sincerely Scarlett, where I do public speaking. And I talk about empowering women, and I talk about what it takes to be that superwoman that we are innately, and then how we are able to manage our lives and our families and our hopes and our dreams. I'm so proud to be here with all of these other incredible women.
I am Agatha Achindu. I am a mother of 3. Actually, my youngest just graduated 8th grade, And I was having a conversation earlier, like in America, we celebrate 8th grade graduation, which is a whole different story. But I am the founder of Yummy Spoonfuls, organic food for kids. I have been in business for, I want to say 18 years. And I really love the fact that I am helping parents change the way they look at food, the way they look at wellness, the way they look at nutrition in particular, how it affects the lives of their kids. My product now is sold through Walmart stores nationwide, but my passion is really connecting to parents across the country and making them understand on the teeniest level how everything that the choices that they make for their kids affect them for life. So I am super excited to be here with all of you amazing ladies because we can all make a difference, either in how you live your life, in the business that you're trying to run, in whatever it is that you're trying to do purposefully. We can all do it. Thank you.
My name is Allison Dukes. Oh, this is on. And I am the CFO of SunTrust Bank. And I, too, am in awe of so many entrepreneurs and the work that goes into that and the courage that goes into that, because I have been working for a very big bank for 22 years, and that's so different than what so many of you are doing. And it's just, I am always so impressed with the entrepreneurial spirit and what that takes, and the innovation and the courage that comes with that. I actually just announced about a month ago that I'm going to leave SunTrust when we close our merger with BB&T later this year. So I'm embarking on this whole new chapter in life where I'm jumping out of the nest where I've grown up and looking at what I might do next, and really with a commitment to staying in Atlanta for a lot of family reasons. So the world is wide open to me in a way that it hasn't been before, which is probably not too dissimilar to how many of you entrepreneurs do feel, which is really exciting and scary at the same time.
That's right.
I have a fantastic husband and 2 boys that are 9 and 11, and a big family here in town. And it's a real pleasure for me working as a woman in a world that doesn't have many women. There aren't many women in finance still, and raising 2 sons and letting them see what that looks like, and that girls can compete just as well as the boys
That's right.
can. And we talk about that at dinner every night.
Wonderful. Well, thank you. I just wanted to kind of start the conversation off with you ladies about, what does work-life balance look in your world, and is there such a thing?
Why don't I start? I think the day started off, I think it was a wonderful comment earlier by Laura, and I believe that, is it balance, is it prioritization, and what is it? We all do what we have to do. I think we all multitask, double task, triple task, quadruple task. It's what we know. It's the only way we get through the day. For me, I have a global role. I have always traveled for my job and for my work. I've got 3 kids they were all born over the course of 3.5 years, so they're very, very close in age. So when they were 5, 6, and 7, then they were 11, 12, and 14. Now they're 18, 20, and 21. And at each period, I had to figure out what that meant. And if you're traveling, sometimes it meant getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning to get the 6 o'clock flight to fly to Seattle for a 3-hour meeting, to go back to the airport and take the same day flight home, so that I was home then on the same night. Last year, I was able to take a new job that is fully global because the last of my children went off to school. So I was on a plane 36 out of 52 weeks of the year, which for me, I love, because I'm running $1 billion business and I can now go to be where I need to be, knowing where my kids are, that they're fully fledged adults, and they were raised to be completely independent, self-thinking, smart, responsible kids. because they knew mom had to go to work and I had a job to do. And like has been said earlier in this room, I loved my job, I loved my children. I needed to make it all work. So in order to make it work, I knew that they had to be on board with what their mom needed to do and who their mom was as a person. And they know that inherently, and they've taken those skills with them.
For me, as an entrepreneur and a sole proprietor originally, I knew that when I got pregnant, instead of slowing down, I had to speed things up. I had to build a team that I would be able to trust and lean on so that since I was in charge of maternity leave, I would be the one responsible for hiring someone to take my place and build a team that could support the work as it continued to grow. And so I think motherhood really launched me into a true leadership role, not just doing the business, but actually empowering a team to help really grow and take on the work as their own. We are actually looking for a CFO, so but the work for me, even just with a 1-year-old, I give a huge shout out. How many of you are mothers out there in the audience? Wow, huge applause to you. This, as you know, being a mom just opens up so many new realizations and doors to what it's like to work and be a mom and to still have your dreams and balance. And so for me, I can't help but create the metaphors in life, and how I see my company growing and go through these stages as I see my little William go through these stages. As he learns to walk, he takes 2 steps forward and 1 step back and plops on his ass. So sometimes companies do the same thing, right? So as we're growing and figure things out and leaning on each other, I think taking it with a realistic point of view and leaning on the team to help grow the company as well.
So I have never really been comfortable with the word balance, because I think it projects this idea that there is a formula or some type of amount that you have to reach of each kind of category of your life. And I think when you're an entrepreneur, you kind of sign up to be accountable for a little bit more in every aspect of your life than somebody who is not. So I've always looked at the word alignment, and I think that word has given me a little more peace in my own personal journey in the bigger scope of the world. I mean, to get personal, I turned 40 last summer, and I've had a great career. I've started 3 things from nothing. I have loved so much of every work and every ounce of love that I put into work, but I am single. I think I'm probably the face of that on this panel. I don't have kids yet, and I look at that. Committing to Kate's Club at 22 years old in my 20s, being young and on such a learning curve, I had to give up a lot for that decade of my life, and that is something that I have no regrets around. But I've also had to not look and try to normalize that as something that I don't have in my journey with my peers and in just as you walk around the community. So I think this idea of alignment, checking in every day with yourself and with your essence and why you're doing it and who you have around you, is a healthier approach to understand if things need to shift or to change. That has always allowed me to stay a bit more kind of lined up with my North Star. So I think that would just be my contribution to that.
Good. So in terms of work-life balance, I think that what we have to understand is that too in and of itself is a job. It's something you have to conscientiously work at. It's not going to just happen. You will find yourself very overwhelmed if you don't realize this is something that you're going to have to work at. So personally, this is what I do, and I heard someone else say this. Each month, there is some time that I've carved out for myself on my calendar. I make time for me to get that massage, to get that facial, or just to have an hour to read a book undisturbed. I have that time for me. And then I have that time for my family that I don't let hardly anything preempt if I can help it. I have 5 kids and 3 in-laws, and one is in the back of the room to be an in-law soon. So, you know, my family is about 10 deep immediate, and when we come together, you know, it's a time where we choose to love each other, care about each other, be engaged with each other, and it's very, very important. And then I have 2 little granddaughters, so I have to make that time for them, but it is an effort. It is something I have to think about doing, and don't let it come to me via happenstance. It is something I work toward. So make time for yourself, prioritize, and I shared with the other ladies in the room just a moment ago, Valerie Burton has an incredible book out called It's About Time, where you are learning, where she helps you to understand the importance of choosing the meaningful over the urgent. Wow. So get that book. It helps a lot.
I think for me, having really started a company from nothing with 3 boys. My kids are 26, 22, and 14. And when I talk about balance, I think that word is overrated. Like we give it too much value. I pay attention to the things that are important, and I'm not afraid to let things go. If it's not important, even if it's on my schedule, I don't fret over it. I just keep it moving. So to me, balance, it's having the power to move away from something if it's not that important. So you don't have to work 16 hours a day because you have to check everything on your calendar. If it's the end of the day and it's not done, like, well, the sun will rise tomorrow, so will I. And that day is gone. So to me, right, that is balance, because there is no way you can do it all. And we also, as mothers, and as women in particular, we are expected to always overachieve to prove the same point. And you have to take that right and say you don't have to overperform. You just have to do your best, and your best is what's going to be. If it's one thing, that's it. That to me is balance.
So I have always felt like balance was a bit of a fairy tale, and it's different for everybody. You know, and I like the word alignment, Kate. I'm going to remember that one. I think we have to each find what fuels us and how we want to live and how we feel fulfilled and challenged. For me, I'm at my best 90 miles an hour. I spent my first 10 years in banking and investment banking. I've spent the last few as the CFO of a Fortune 500 company. I do my best when it's kind of 24/7, and I like that. And even in the change I'm going to make, everybody keeps saying, oh, maybe you're going to take more time for yourself. And I think, you know what? This is time for myself. It's actually where I find joy and motivation and purpose in what I do. So it isn't work for me. It's joy. It's fuel. It's what I love. So I'll probably end up replicating something that looks, very similar 24/7, and that intensity of a big corporate environment, because that's where I actually find that I can add value. And I think of balance a lot. For me, it's my faith is where I'm very centered. And if I'm clear on what I'm honoring and who I'm honoring, then that's balance for me. And that can come from time with my family. It can come from doing my work and doing it well. It comes from the work I do in the community with nonprofits. And all of those sort of make up my ecosystem, where I find that I'm honoring God and finding that alignment that suits me. I think it's very personal, and you can't try to replicate your life to look like anyone else's. You have to do what fits your circumstances and where you find joy and fulfillment.
Yeah, I completely agree with finding your own space, and it actually leads us into another question, and a more personal question is, how do you find, wellness is such a big word today. It covers a lot of things, mind, body, and the spirit. And could you share with the women sitting here, what does wellness look like for you personally? and what do you do to personally take care of yourself in that space? With children and the mom guilt and the long hours and
I mean, you want me to go?
anybody can jump in. This is not like
Okay.
I'll
it's a
jump in.
discussion. Yes.
Yeah, I was at a recent conference where a lady who talked about the difference between doing and being. And for me, I've been doing my whole life. That's just how I am. And I'm like Allison, I mean, like, I'm 110% or zero. It's just how I work. And I realized it even brought me to tears afterwards when they said, you know, you cannot, you cannot forget who you are, or is that, you can, hold on, you can, I'm gonna mess it up, but you cannot give up being for the sake of great doing.
That's right.
And I think that hit home to me as when I even was sharing who am I as an individual, who am I as a woman, who am I as a mother, as a friend, as a wife, as a daughter, and trying to be everything to everybody else, but how do I serve myself? And how do I become my higher self so that I can then show up at work and be that bright light for other people, but mostly for myself and for the world. So I think don't forget who you are for the sake of great doing. Remember that being is just as important, just as who you are right now and what you're doing. And so taking those moments of reflection and honoring yourself as much as your work.
Thought we may be popping out of order. Yeah, so I actually have a really interesting story around this topic because I'm not sure if I shared, but really the reason I started Kate's Club was my mother passed away when I was 12 years old. And, you know, I looked around and I was like, whose mom dies? You know, I, you know, grew up in Virginia, had, you know, a good kind of great childhood public school experience, but then suddenly I had this like freight train, you know, run into my life. And I looked around and it was like the only people I knew whose mom died were, you know, Cinderella and Snow White. And I was like, they aren't really gonna be able to help me. And so I spent my adolescence, you know, I mean, like, real deal, I spent my adolescence like just kind of isolated, you know, almost a shell of a young person and a young woman who was in formative years of developing themselves spiritually, personally. Certainly, we all know what that's like just regularly being an adolescent. And when my world got bigger and I, you know, became an adult, I just realized like, shit, this happens to a lot of kids. Like, why is there no community around this? Like, it kind of like blew my mind. So I immediately, you know, just being kind of young and naive and wanting to be Oprah Winfrey, I was like, well, I'm just gonna start it, right? Literally, I wrote, this was like before we had crowdfunding platforms or anything, so I wrote Oprah Winfrey. She was the only person I knew that had any money that she was giving away. This was like 16 years ago, so quite different than it is now. And I had a bar night. I call that the original crowdfunding platform. $20 at the door, you get a drink, you know. And with that $1,200, took 6 kids bowling. And then obviously now we have a clubhouse facility. We serve over 1,000 children through the clubhouse facility a year. We have outreach in every major school system in the metro region. We're doing big things on a national level now. But I say all that because when I was 22 and I was starting this, it wasn't only me being an entrepreneur for the first time, but I hadn't had a Kate's Club. Like, I was so young and naive to understand how this would be such an emotional journey for me and my own loss on top of the journey of being an entrepreneur. And oh my gosh, if that wasn't a total recipe for burnout. And I had no mentor or no really system of my own for support at that time. So to me, wellness is community. I mean, it is this room. It is having people around you that have shared experiences, not just from joy, but from struggle, who know that struggle, and you have to, as an entrepreneur, be very intentional about that community. It can be very, it can happen very fast where you are just isolated in your own world because you are so, vulnerable to being exposed, right? Like if somebody knows that, oh my gosh, we didn't meet, we were in the red, or, we did this, that, but you have to let go of that. And so on top of the wellness of, exercise, all that stuff is great. I will just add this and I'll shut up, but meditation has become key in my life. Very much, roots in a spiritual sense, but just like being present, enjoying the journey. Somebody said to me when I was 28 years old and burnt out already at 28, like, what are you racing for? Like, the end line is like, you're dead. Like, so what are you trying to get there faster? Like, what is that about? And it just really hit me to be like, you're like absolutely right. Like, and most often, especially as women, we put that pressure on ourselves. So I think always checking in with yourself and always making sure you have community around you.
So for me, when it comes to wellness and well-being and doing whatever it takes to make you better and allows you to be who you are, I fall back on the cliche, those who mind don't matter. Those who matter don't mind. You have to do what you have to do in that community that you were talking about. Those people who really care about you, they don't mind that you take that time and identify with yourself and be your best self and do whatever it takes to be your best self. And as Allison was saying, you define what all is. You define what it is that makes you feel whole and rewarded for what you do. No one else can define that for you. So whatever that is, you embrace that. And that community who loves you will support you in that effort.
I think for me, I would say wellness, which this is something that for all the moms or ladies that I've worked with, I've really tried to instill that wellness is not just what we eat, it's what we think, it's where we work, it's who we worship. Wellness is looking beyond our noses into something a little bit bigger than us. And I would say for us mothers, it's really looking inside of you to be authentic and knowing you don't have to choose either or, either work, married life, or motherhood. You can actually be every one of those pieces and you can still be whole. So I am a wonderful mother, I'm a wonderful business owner, I'm a wonderful vice president of marketing, I'm a wonderful of all these things because I made, just like you said, a conscious choice and effort to do these things every day. When I wake up in the morning, the first thing that comes out of my mouth is, thank you, God, for another day, right? Yeah. So I always come out from a place of gratitude. That's wellness. And I would say this every day, there is no darkness without light. The sun will always come up. So when you're going through life, running a business, it's a whole different story. But you have to remember that there is no darkness without light. And no matter how wonderful someone else is looking, your life might still just be better. So always look on the inside and be grateful for where you are and put all those pieces. Let your finances be good. Pray a lot, meditate if you can, eat well, and love as much as you can. Life is too short. Right?
I can add nothing to that.
Well, ladies, in the space of gratitude, we thank you for coming and sharing your time and your energy with us. It was so appreciated. Did you guys get a lot of that? So thank you. I do want to open the floor up for questions. If anybody would like to ask any of these phenomenal women a question, please feel free.
I have a question. As you go up, my name is Monica. I'm the CEO and founder of CEO Mastery. We're a leadership development firm. And one of the things that I find with women, particularly as we move through the leadership ranks, is that we have fewer and fewer opportunities peer to peer to talk about some of the things that you have mentioned. Another panelist said that she has her mom as her chief emotional officer, which is great. But mom doesn't know the journey of entrepreneurship the way that I've done it. And so who do you have that are peers that don't depend on you for their paycheck in order to be able to talk about some of these things and grapple with some of the leadership issues that you have to deal with?
I'll take that because I think it's a really important one. I think having a network and a circle of whether they're trusted advisors, whether they're friends who make you feel just physically and mentally whole and sane and sure of yourself, whether they're people that you can actually bounce ideas off of, that understand the work that you do. And I think you hit the nail on the head. You know, I work for a major global multinational Fortune 500 organization. Talking to somebody, I've got a lot of friends who don't work, who have the pleasure of, you know, luxury of not working, don't understand. My mother doesn't necessarily understand what I do. So you need to have people who do actually understand the decisions you're making every day and can give you trusted advice. So it's a circle of people. It's people like the people in this room. It is your family and your girlfriends or your spouse or your partner or whoever it may be. Sometimes it's my kids. I find that my youngest child is a 40-year-old man inside his own head. He has given me some of the wisest, most on-point advice to problems that I'm dealing with employees that I may have to fire. And he seems to inherently understand. I don't know if he's just listened to me for 20 years and absorbed it all, but figuring out who you actually can trust, and each of those individuals, some are just going to actually give you confidence. Some will give you advice. Some will give you encouragement. And who can you actually trust? And you've got to figure that out. Everybody in this room has to have a circle of people. And it's hard. I didn't always have those people. For many, many years, I worked in a situation where being at work wasn't necessarily a safe place for me. And I didn't feel that, so it was brought up, I think, earlier in one of the sessions today. I basically hid, never ever spoke about the fact that I was single, that I didn't stay at work until 8 o'clock at night because I came in as early as I could because I had 3 kids that had to get to soccer and to wherever they needed to be, and I had to make dinner and get dinner on the table. So not letting anybody have a reason to think that I wasn't up to the task. So, that was my big dark secret. So I didn't talk to anybody because it was easier not to talk to anybody than to perhaps divulge a vulnerability. And it took me a long time to actually be able to be myself. And it takes having people that you can vent and you can cover to, and we all need those people.
So one little tactic just to add on to that, because I think that's probably very common amongst us, is, for the past 15 years, I've had a list in my wallet, in my purse, that is the 6 people that I can call first. So actually keep those names. They've changed, they've definitely changed over the years, because you can think you have all these people around you, and then in that moment of kind of stress or overwhelm, where you don't trust, you don't know who to trust. Again, kind of going through a bit of this burnout experience, so young in my career, it became really important to me to have something tangible, just at my disposal, where I could just pull it out and look at 6 people and call one of them. So in terms of just a tactical, way to start doing that and start feeling that surrounding, make that list and just put it in your purse. Just have it there.
And I want to add to what you said. Look into having a mentor. And I know that's such a difficult thing for a lot of people. Just have the courage. You can go through LinkedIn. But if there's somebody that you admire who is in the field of what you're trying to do and has done that part already, you can reach out to them through LinkedIn or, I don't know, social media now is so easy. But you really would need, it would be nice to have a mentor, somebody that you can bounce ideas back and forth.
And I want to share also, as women, we have some God-given innate intuition. Follow your intuition. And you're in a room full of women right now who are on the same journey that you're on, who've been there, done that. And as you were saying, there's a special place in hell for women who don't help other women. So if you ask me to help you, it's my responsibility to do so. So follow your intuition. I'm extremely optimistic. I'm quite trusting, sometimes overly trusting, but follow your intuition to know who you can trust and who will be in your corner. Everybody in your circle is not in your corner. So make sure that you have someone you can trust and call on. And as a woman, she's going to be there for you.
Wow. Wow. But that reminded me, if you don't have a circle that is in the same kind of level of life or in entrepreneurship or in a company, just want to give you this tip. Civic Dinners has worked with Facebook and the She Means Business organization side of things. So they have a Facebook group called She Means Business that anyone can join. You mention your company, and there's like 14,000 women in just North America alone that are all going through the same things, and they have programs and stuff like that. And also through them, we have a female founders civic dinner topic, and also a funding female founders civic dinner that you can join or you can host. So that's another way to try to find others in Atlanta even that are trying to find a crew or have a conversation around the struggles and the realities of female founders.
Do we have time for one more question? Go ahead. I hate to stop. It's like, go ahead.
Question is target for you is Presley Brown, right? But anyone can definitely answer this. What stood out to me is earlier you mentioned the idea of the cape. We all wear the cape, the superwoman syndrome that we all have. And my name is Tiana Patrice. I'm the founder of Women's CEO Alliance, which is the only female-based co-working space in the state of Alabama.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
And one of the things that's very important to us as we teach entrepreneurship and help women grow their businesses is I don't like the balance word either. I think it's the man's way of trying to keep us down. But you mentioned managing the cape, and that's actually one of the courses that I teach. What advice would you give to us about managing that invisible cape?
You have to learn how to prioritize. You have to decide what's most important to you first and be able to pivot. Life happens. What you start with very well may not be what you finish with in terms of prioritizing. But I think that, as we said earlier, you have to put forth the effort to determine what is most important. It's not just going to happen. You have to identify what your issues are, what your challenges are, and then put them in an order. And not necessarily be ready to check them off, but just know you have to address them all and deal with them. And then when it doesn't work, pivot, find another way of getting to that end game that you're trying to get to. You can't wear that cape with the idea that everything's going to work out according to plan. The best laid plan is going to have some challenges, and you just have to be ready for them. And I think, again, as women, we innately know how to take on a challenge. We're going to figure out a way. That's just our God gift that we need to capitalize on. Just know, too, that you have a community you can call on. You have other resources that you can go to when you have those issues. Find someone who's been down the path that you're trying to go down. Ask them what they did. Don't invent don't have the wheel turned 3 times in the same direction and not going anywhere. Know where your resources are that can help you get to where you want to be. Don't feel like you have to do it all alone, because even the best caped woman has others who help her keep that cape pressed and ironed and ready to go.
And can I just add to that? I would also say you also have to figure out what you can do without. If you can't have everything, if it's not all going to fit, if that 10 pounds is not going to fit in that 5-pound bag, what is it that's not essential? What is it that you can live without, or that you can do without for another year, or put on your 5-year plan, or put on the longer term goal aspiration list? And what are those most critically important things that make your life what it is today, and that will also help you grow to what you ultimately want the long-term game to look like? It may not all happen this year or even next year, but know what you want the end goal to look like, and then figure out what steps you take along the way.
And I would add just one little thing to that. You really have to write out the things that are so important, so you don't walk on distractions, because we can be busy all day, but we're not doing purposeful work. So what are your goals? And write the things that directly impacts. So if you're spending 3 hours on social media and that's not tied to that goal that you've set, just drop it away.
I have one quick thing that I say a lot around this topic, and that is, especially for women, I think we're more distinctly like caregivers and empaths. And so when you're an entrepreneur, you're a boss, and you're wearing that cape, you can tend to look at feeling the needs of others around you. And I say, when you're on an airplane and they're giving the instructions of, you lose pressure in the cabin, what does the flight attendant say? Put the mask on yourself first and then assist the person next to you. And I know this sounds really weird, but I have to remind myself that a lot, because I tend to go outside first, and then it's kind of spiraling inside, and then that just spirals everywhere. So sometimes I'm just like, remember, Kate, put the mask on yourself first.
There's one more question. Do we have time for one more?
I have a question.
No? So sorry. Well, we have to end the session, but thank you, and thank you. Maybe you guys can talk afterwards or something.